Last time I was on the phone with Fishbowl tech support, I said, hey, would there be any good videos for me to make that would help you guys out? And he said, make a video on Mark as posted. The Mark as posted feature can solve so many export to QuickBooks errors. So I'm on board. I'm Lance, inventory software expert since 2006, and in this video, we're going to talk about the Mark as posted feature, how to use it, how not to use it, and how it can help you. So first of all, let me show you where to find it. If you go to the menu bar across the top, it's under Accounting or Accounting Integration. Or if you go on the menu bar across the left-hand side, it's under Accounting Integration. So we need to be on the Accounting Integration screen. Now this is the screen that allows you to export to QuickBooks manually. It doesn't look like a button unless you hover over it, but once you hover over it, you can see you can export to QuickBooks. Also in the top left-hand corner is an export button. Okay, this is the manual way. The automatic way, since I brought it up, is to go to Setup Schedule right here. And here you can click New, click Export, Accounting Export, and set up an automatic export to QuickBooks. And once you do, it'll look like this. My recommendation of what time to do it is not 11 a.m. That was a mistake. I thought I was doing 11 p.m. 11 p.m. is my personal preference because that keeps it on the same day. Lets you get all the information, all the data in, and it keeps it on the same date when you export it to QuickBooks. So that's a good thing to do there. And if you click on this or push play right here, that will also do the same thing that the export button will do on this other screen. So now let's take a look at this. We've got a red square. Previously we had a green triangle, but because we ran this export over here, there's nothing left to export. So let's spend just a quick second creating some transactions to push to QuickBooks. We'll receive some things. We'll reconcile some things. Pick and ship some things. Heck, we'll close out work orders, why not? Well, let's do some cycle count adjustments too. Let's adjust some things. And we picked some things, but we didn't ship it. So let's ship some things. And let's receive a payment. Okay, now that we've completed some posting transactions like receiving, reconciling, shipping, cycle count adjusting, closing out work orders, and payments, we'll have these transactions queued up and ready to post to QuickBooks. So now back on the accounting integration screen, we'll see we've got a green triangle. And if we click this export button, all those transactions that we just queued up will go to QuickBooks. If you want to see what some of them are, there's a couple of reports that you can see that on, like this adjustment report right here. This shows us a cycle count adjustment that I made, but did not post. So that's kind of nice to see. We'll know that if we click export, that will go over to QuickBooks. Now, this video is on Mark as posted, right? So let me just point this out. If you click Mark as posted and then click export, this cycle count adjustment right here will be marked as posted, which means date posted will be entered, and from a Fishbowl perspective, it will look like it went to QuickBooks. But from a QuickBooks perspective, nothing will have come over. Now, I'm not saying you should use the feature for that, right? Just listening to me say that probably freaks you out. You're like, why would I ever do that? You wouldn't. You shouldn't. That's not the proper usage of the feature. Now while we're on this scary topic of, oh my gosh, someone could check that box and click export and then everything that's in the queue will not go to QuickBooks. Yes. To prevent that, I did this on another video, but it's probably worth mentioning again. If you go to Setup, User Group, and go to the Accounting User Rights right here, pull this up, and then click on Access. So once again, we're under Setup, User Group, on the Accounting User Group, and right here we see the Accounting Integration, and notice Mark as Posted is one of the items on the list, and I would recommend you uncheck that box for everyone but the admin. I always like setting up user rights to prevent us from inadvertently, accidentally making a huge blunder. And that would be a huge blunder, to just mark the entire queue as posted. The Mark as Posted feature should be used carefully. So this is my recommendation for user rights setup. The accountant should not have rights to repost or mark as posted. So they don't just accidentally do that. Let's give them some sort of stop before they do it. And then on all these other users, all these other user groups like purchasing, generally speaking, in most cases, purchasing should have no user rights, and none of these others should have user rights to accounting. Except for the super user, that one has rights to everything, and that's for training before you start using QuickBooks, or if you're a really small company. And anyways, that's an exception to the rule, right? So let's go back to the Mark as Posted feature. I just told you what not to do. Don't inadvertently just mark everything as posted. You should only use the Mark as Posted feature if, say, you've got an error message. Something is gummed up in the system that won't go to QuickBooks. And if it's just like 1 or 2 transactions, then okay, export everything else. And if there's just a couple left over, mark it as posted, go into QuickBooks and manually enter it. Sometimes it's not worth trying to figure out what the problem is, right? Now, this is coming from someone who has OCD. I like to figure out the problem. I like to solve the problem. So I'm not saying don't do that. I try to solve the problem. I'm saying sometimes it just isn't worth the time. And it's a lot easier. It makes more sense to export everything that can be exported, and then the 1 or 2 transactions that are left over that, for all it's worth, you can't figure out why they won't go over to QuickBooks, what that weird error message is. Sometimes it just makes better sense to just mark those 1 or 2 transactions as posted and then manually create them in QuickBooks. So let's click Export right here. If you haven't done this export before, I would highly recommend you do this export, especially when you first start using Fishbowl or QuickBooks. Yeah, the automated scheduled task export is awesome. You should absolutely run that every day. But this is important because you see what is exporting to QuickBooks and what's not exporting to QuickBooks. Now, the scheduled task will give you error messages, and it will tell you what got stuck. But if you do a manual export to QuickBooks once a day, bam, it's in your face. You'll catch it right away. You can solve it right away. So this, validation error. Shipping must be purchasable in QuickBooks Online to allow Fishbowl to sync. Okay, now remember, I shipped sales orders. I did a cycle count adjustment. I did receiving. I did reconciling. I closed out a work order, right? And none of them are going over. That's bad. That's why you should do this manual export once a day just to make sure this isn't happening. Because if you just thought it was working in the background the whole time and the scheduled task was just working fine, you know, a week later, 3 days later, who knows when you're going to discover it. Hey, how come it's not going over to QuickBooks? And then you've got loads of data, depending on the size of your company. You could have loads of data that needs to go over to QuickBooks. It's better to catch it right out front. So what's this? Shipping must be purchasable in QuickBooks Online to allow Fishbowl to sync. Let me pull up my QuickBooks Online here. I've got a sandbox account that I created just so I could fiddle around with the integration with Fishbowl. It says shipping must be purchasable. So apparently my shipping item in QuickBooks is not purchasable. So I'm going to go see if I can fix that. No guarantees. Let's see. Put me on the spot here. Let's go shipping. Let's edit. Let's try this one. Shipping class, description, sales price, purchasing information. I purchased this product service from a vendor. Yep, that is unchecked. So I'm going to check that. And that should be good. That should be all I have to do. So I made my shipping purchasable. Now, if you don't get anything else out of this video besides this one part right here, is this. Now I know I'm being a parent kind of, and I don't mean to do that, but read the error message. I'm guilty of that too. I like to just skip over the error messages. They're frustrating. We don't like to read them, but that error message showed me the problem, and it was a good explanation, a good description. It showed me I was able to fix it just by reading the error message. So anyways, get off my soapbox. You know, don't forget to read the error messages. Okay, I'll click export, try this again. Now, everything went over. Yay, no problem. Everything went over. Bills, inventory adjustments, invoices, item receipts, manufacturing adjustments, miscellaneous items, payments. They all went over. Now, if one of these, it would be really hard for me to try to figure out an error message, one of those really rare ones that you can't fix. So I'm not going to do that. But let's say one of these had some really odd, rare message, and it showed up red. It said possible 1, exported 0. You know, let's just pretend. If that was the case, then the rest of these, sometimes, unlike my previous example, sometimes an error message will allow everything else to go over, but it's the only one that didn't go over. And in that case, that's when you would mark as posted. Export everything you can. Maybe do the mark as posted when no one else is in there, right? Because what if in between the time you exported and the time you marked as posted, someone received inventory or shipped inventory or cycled inventory or closed a work order or received a payment? You know, like if you got 20 people in there, you should probably do a mark as posted after hours. But very, very valid, very legitimate solution to the problem. You know, let's say this says bill. This top row says bills. Let's say a bill is gummed up in the system and it's not going over to QuickBooks. Possible is 1, exported 0. Okay, so you'd run an export, get everything over there except for the bill. But usually if the bill is not going over, down here below, like you saw before, it will have an error message saying what bill it is. So you could actually go over to the receiving screen, check and see what bill is not going over, and then just go into QuickBooks, manually create the bill. Now, while we're here on the topic, what's this repost right here? I know this video is mainly for the mark as posted, but what about repost? What's that? Repost is also a very rare feature that you should hopefully never have to use. Let's say something went wrong with QuickBooks and you had to restore a backup of QuickBooks from yesterday or 2 days ago. This repost would allow you to push data over again to QuickBooks. So you repost from a specific date. Now in Fishbowl, you can't pick and choose which transactions to push over to QuickBooks. It's an all or nothing thing. That goes with all exports. So if you had to restore a backup of QuickBooks, you could come to this repost and go back yesterday when you had to restore the backup. Now look at this. There's no time stamp. It's only a date stamp. So it's not a perfect solution here, but sometimes it's the best solution. Repost from a specific date. So you still have to go into QuickBooks and look at the transactions in QuickBooks to see if there were any duplicates that pushed over. Yes, duplicates, the thing we all fear, right? This reposting feature can cause duplicates. So if you have duplicates in Fishbowl, in QuickBooks, ask around. Is anyone using the repost and they don't understand how it's used? That's why I turn it off in the user rights. The repost should not be used lightly. It should be used hardly ever and very carefully. But it can save you hours and hours and hours of data import if you have to restore a backup of QuickBooks. So it is a good feature. But yeah, these two features right here, repost and mark as posted, should almost never be used. There's just rare situations that they should be used. But they're both helpful features to clear out the queue. Now, another useful feature that sort of goes along with this that you probably will end up using is the adjustment report or the export summary report found up here under reports. So if you want to know what's in the queue, why it's a green triangle, what's about to go over to QuickBooks, you can run the export summary report that shows you purchase order related transactions, sales order related transactions, and work order related transactions. Blue checkbox means posted, red square means not posted. And this one actually shows us marked as posted, so that's nice. Here's a work order that was marked as posted. So this never went to QuickBooks. We left it in Fishbowl. So those are useful indicators. Then also the adjustment report will show us what cycle count adjustments or add inventory adjustments went to QuickBooks. If this date posted, if it didn't go to QuickBooks, if it's in the queue and it hasn't gone to QuickBooks yet, this will say not posted. So these two reports are helpful to show you what has gone over to QuickBooks or what's in the queue ready to go to QuickBooks. And you might just use those reports in conjunction with some of these features, right? Understand this too. This is an important thing to understand. Fishbowl is a QuickBooks user, all right? So imagine a human being, a human user that logs into QuickBooks has to obey QuickBooks rules, right? QuickBooks has some rules. You can't create a customer with the same name as a vendor, for instance. You can't create an employee with the exact same name as a vendor. So as a user, we have to obey rules. And if we don't obey the rule and we try to do something, we, a human being, will get an error message from QuickBooks. Fishbowl has to follow these same rules. When Fishbowl logs into QuickBooks and performs tasks, if it tries to perform a task that isn't going to work, Fishbowl is going to get the error message from QuickBooks. So understand that when you're looking at error messages in the export summary report, those error messages 99% of the time are from QuickBooks. And Fishbowl is just relaying the error message to you. So anyways, I hope that pointer helped. Comment below if you have any questions. Be sure to subscribe to see more YouTube videos that are hopefully helpful to you.